Hello, everyone.
Jeremy.
Well, with Miggy's Bakes in town, I don't go to Gigi's anymore, except if I need
Yeah.
treats for people. I love Miggy's Bakes.
I do too. I have a free cookie there right now. My friend gave me a coupon for it and I'm like, gotta get my free cookie.
Best scotcheroos.
Yeah, everything there is so good. Should have brought a little post-it note that showed who we were expecting. Go grab that.
Find the resume. It comes straight from the office. Oh, here somewhere?
I think it's just to the left.
The only other person we're expecting is Randy Bruce. Kelly Sandoval had been a yes, but had a last minute thing that came up. So. And we will have to wrap up by 7 because council starts in there at 7.
Did we determine another member?
It's Kelly.
Kelly.
So Kelly had been on and then was gonna go off. And I took it back to the CDA and with the
That's right.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, hey, I didn't know if you were gonna make it.
Yeah. I am back.
Are you married?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Did you get to have a honeymoon?
Yes.
Where'd you go?
We went to Cabo in Mexico.
Fun.
We got just barely nicked with the Hurricane Lorena on the way out. So just a little flight delay, but it went far enough around.
Good enough.
Good, yeah.
Nice. So, Randy would be the only other one. Just want to make sure he didn't. Call me. If you want,
Do we have quorum?
we are good. Yes.
Okay. All right, it's 5:03 and I'm gonna call this meeting of the Housing and Finance Strategy Subcommittee to order. And you've got the attendance. First order of business are our minutes from the meeting of August 12th. Do I have? How are we doing minute approval nowadays? Do I have any changes or items for discussion, corrections?
I had
Right.
2 points I wanted to bring up. The last graph of page 1 of the minutes says the phrase "a benefit to cultivate partnerships to help to supplementing funding." I believe it's supposed to be to help in supplementing funding.
Oh, right here where I'm highlighting.
Yeah, right there.
Or supplement to help to supplement funding. It's either a tense issue or a preposition issue.
Okay. Okay. So, I'll make the change to, benefit to cultivate partnerships to help supplement funding. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
That sounds good. One more thing, the ending of the top paragraph of page 2 of the minutes says, in Sauk Prairie that has a set aside for teachers. I think there's a blank in Sauk Prairie that has a blank set aside for teachers, but I'm not sure what the project has set aside for teachers. It's a noun of some kind.
Yeah, that actually probably should be more descriptive of what I was sharing. They have the rental units, the income, the rental cost is capped at the current rate of rental, which is found to be affordable for first year teachers it's capped for 10 years. And then the other piece is that there are 2 units that are specifically for school district employee or school district staff. So you have to be a staff person of the school district to rent those units. So I don't know how you wanna,
Should it be that there is a project in Sun Prairie that has affordable housing units?
in partnership with the school district?
Yes, and
Yep.
then not be specific to teachers
Yep.
versus other staff?
Yep.
Okay,
So I think, right, we could, because it's a partnership with the school district, local employers, the chamber
mhm,
and the village, or the
Okay.
city,
okay,
it's a village. So, I mean, that's what I would say, that it's a, you know, who that partnership is with.
okay.
Does that work, Jeremy?
Yeah, that sounds great to me.
Okay.
And that's all the notes I had.
Any other questions or changes?
Nope.
All right, with the corrections Abby's making, we will go ahead and accept the minutes with those amendments. All right, next to our remaining agenda item is to continue reviewing our draft affordable action plan. The version that Alderman Iro marked up based on the last conversation was shared out, and that's correct, right, Abby? With
Yes.
the red,
Yeah.
blue, and bold?
Yeah,
That's
Okay.
what's in the packet.
All right, I did, unfortunately, Alderman Herniro is double booked tonight. So she and I did have the opportunity to talk through the markup and additional thoughts. And so, and explaining how she kind of laid this out. Just to get us back up to speed, it looks like, so starting on page 1, she did pull out mission or vision, mission and values. And identifying that we did adopt the regional housing strategy values in addition to our own goals. There is an outstanding question with regard to empowerment. God, I wear the wrong glasses. So so the question on the table is, should partnership be a separate value? Should it be its own bullet with with descriptor?
I would argue that it should not be a separate value. I think the number of values that we have is pretty nice. It fills up the page nicely. Partnerships aren't necessarily its own value, but something that is related to each of them. Maybe it could be a piece of text outside the values themselves as something that reinforces each of those, or it could remain under empowerment.
I would build on that and say that we are empowered via partnerships. We empower each other through
Right.
partnerships. I don't know, was there a thought process about why it should be pulled out?
We didn't get into that when we spent more time later on in the document last night. I think maybe because it kind of does stick out, but it needs that connection with empowerment as a value. So I think to your point, it's like the empowerment is through partnership.
Okay.
However, I think rather than a value, I do see it maybe potentially needing to be added to our priorities. Partnership could be a priority for us in some way.
Well, when you look at the priorities, though, partnerships are a how to get to those to be,
Okay.
right? So I mean, we've got partnership called out in the actions. To me, that's sufficient, right? And the, what's in the above list is okay. What's first important is what's in the actions we're focusing on, right? So I can go either way.
So do we take it out of the empowerment clause altogether?
I think so. I mean, I think Jeremy proposed is good the way it's written, right? if I understood Jeremy correctly, I agree with that.
So no change.
So just strike that.
I guess, could you repeat one more time the like thought process behind pulling it out? Like what, why that would be a good idea, or like
I think it
the
was
greater
a question.
purpose of doing.
I don't know if
Okay.
there's an opinion, it's just a question of. I don't, right, I see that maybe it's a little disconnected from the first sentence,
Right.
like. How are we getting from the residents, the practitioners, elected officials? You know, those are the empowered folks that were empowered about leveraging these housing resources. Then, you know, do we need some kind of connection to that to get to that partnership? Or do we,
I see what you're saying.
but I'm hearing that partnership is highlighted throughout sufficiently. And that it's a mechanism to get at. You know, partnership is embodied in all of our values. And. You know, the priorities, the actions get at partnership, so. I don't even know that it needs to be called out in empowerment even. But I'm hearing
Yeah.
two for no change.
Two for, I guess, but I could kind of go through saying, we have when we get to the list of actions,
Mhm.
we have a specific action that's basically that second sentence, right? So do we need it here too? Maybe we don't need it here too, right?
Yeah, I follow that channel process in terms of like, these are our values, and partnership isn't necessarily a value, it's more of an action.
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I would get behind removing it from this, just so it is a little more concise.
Yeah, thinking about value is like a value statement.
Yeah.
And like this is like articulating on actions that.
Yeah.
That. So, okay, so now I'm hearing remove that second sentence from the values.
Yeah,
Jeremy's nodding his head.
I think if you
I agree.
remove that, then it's almost exactly consistent with the regional housing strategies or values. They have the same 6, so.
Okay.
And they don't have that additional sentence, at least that I'm seeing here.
But partnership is throughout our actions, so.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Got it.
Yep. Cool. Removed. All right, and the remaining question from what we've reviewed prior, is under target population, currently it reads, target population is households earning up to 120% of the area median income, with particular emphasis on those earning below the area median income. The question is, are we shifting that? Because we have had robust conversation about that 120, that top, maybe the up, anything above 80 is not of our priority. 80% was 80% and lower, less was our priority. So the question is, do we change this within the priorities and include the table of AMI so that it articulates what that means?
so that maybe this is something I missed, I didn't see the whole recording of the last meeting. We've moved from 120 to 80 as the focus, or?
No, the question is, should we, here, we have had in the draft at 120, because
Okay.
that's what we're, like, is allowable. But should our priority be 80% AMI or less? Population, 80% or less.
Okay. Because we would be allowing up to the 120, but within that, we're focusing on the 80% or less. Okay. I agree with including the table, because I think anyone looking at this document is going to be like, well, what is AMI? And like, what does that number actually mean literally for a family looking at the materials, say they are at some point down the line?
So would it read, our target population is households earning up to 120% of the median income, with particular emphasis on those learning 80% or less AMI,
I'd agree with that.
and then have the table?
One possible flaw that I see with this language,
Mhm.
we have a lot of developers who would be interested in trying to seek funding for multifamily rental housing at 80%. And the city's past practice has been, we will not provide an incentive for that type of housing unless it's 60% AMI or lower. Because 80% AMI, and I think Randy Bruce made this point at one of our last previous meetings, 80% is getting pretty close to market rate for multifamily rental.
Okay.
So I'm just pointing that out as something like our staff is gonna have to be explaining this time and time, like, no, it says this, but we aren't providing an incentive unless it is the will of this group for housing at 80% AMI unless it's owner occupied. We wouldn't provide an incentive for renter occupied housing at 80%
Got it.
AMI. Whereas this body may want to consider providing an incentive for owner occupied housing at 100% AMI, because that's something we aren't getting.
And still not quite market rate
Mhm.
for ownership.
Especially for new construction.
Sure.
Yeah.
I almost wonder, based off of what you're saying, and I feel like maybe we've talked about this a little bit, in doing that, like making that language change, it does kind of pigeonhole us a little bit in terms of, like you said, running into issues with developers or, you know, how we specifically want to focus renter versus owner or ownership. And I also wonder if we actually, yeah, I think it's basically, I had a concern before you mentioned it that basically it was along the same lines, not in the precise nature that you outlined, but that in listing something lower, it creates confusion of, well, I'm 80 to 120. Is this still for me? Just being straightforward and saying we're trying for all these groups. And then as people dive deeper, maybe, you know, we get more specific with it.
So maybe it is better to be broad in this, in that it's our guidepost, it's our priority. But when we are actually planning out strategies, we would have actual guidelines and criteria. And it would be, so we could determine that AMI level at that time.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So maybe no change.
Okay.
Do we include the table though?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
would.
we'll just have to make sure that it's clear that that table is updated annually. Here's where you can find it. This plan will live on in future
So if
years.
it's a hyperlink or something, maybe.
Yep.
Yep, okay. All right, so no change there, link to table, sounds good. All right, so where we left off last was under, it was our goal 2, strategy 2, not sure what we're calling them. Oh, we did, we did review, nope, that's to be reviewed today. So Alder Heniro has and I believe, Ben, she incorporated some of your thoughts already into what she's highlighting here.
Run myself, my thoughts were.
If you want, I got a copy right there too. Well, hello.
Hey, Randy.
Hey, ready?
So bold are things that she's identified as must-haves. Items that are blue are those that we can potentially, they may be assigned to others, they may be something that staff can already be working on. And then red is Alder Nairo has identified that she thinks that these are ones that we would not include in part of our core mission, right? Because we're trying to now, we need to like really prioritize our focus. So, for example, right, we must have like this to meet this goal would be to provide funding for support services that help people stay in their homes. All, you know, A, B, C, and D items are different tactics to provide those support services. So those are possibilities of ways to fund. Then item 2, it's been identified that potentially to assign elsewhere, establish or strengthen protections for renters by adopting rental retaliation ordinance or a rent abatement ordinance, right? This is maybe an item, an action for council. Does not need to live within how we're gonna, you know, strategize using our funds. Again, with number 3 is an ordinance change for adopting fair housing policy. Again, that would be a potential council item that could be brought forward, looking you know, to LNO to look at that.
Do you know, for those are the blue items, right, that you're talking about?
Mhm.
For those, as we're going through, are there any, and I guess this is a general question, that it would be better if we still provided some kind of recommendation for that group to consider or thoughts to think about? Or is that kind of basically still doing it and not really moving it if you do it like
Well, I
that?
think that. I don't know that because I think it would be staff putting it on lists of things
For them to
for
consider.
other ways to accomplish them. It's still something that's, you know, identified by this body of mix of CDA representatives and workforce housing to, you know, we'd like to see these things happen, but right, it's not on our list of our strategy.
Yeah, I think part of this thinking is, you know, we've got a fund coming in, right?
Yeah.
What are we gonna use the fund on, right? There might be things, complementary action we might take outside that using the fund, but this document is focusing on what we can use the fund for.
Okay.
If you'd like, we could move these to a separate document, and when you are ready to take action on the plan, you could at the same time say. And recommend that these additional things be
Mhm.
pursued and included in the city's comp plan.
Mhm.
Some of them, we might be able to get them knocked off before, like even the next comp plan update, but some might take longer.
Right, so like thinking about items 4 and 5 that are really outside of potentially the scope of our strategy, but are those, there are mechanisms that help with sort of the overall goal of affordable housing and just the support services, so, but really, that's a budget, these increasing funding, that's council budget decision making, that's, you know. So can that go on a list for city staff to put in their budget proposals for next year? You know, again, it's like recommending to the city that, you know, these things be considered.
Sure.
And then, for example, like explore ways under current state law to reduce impact of property tax increases on homeowners who are seniors earning less than 80% of AMI, you know, that's city leadership and city council or legal counsel.
I was gonna chime in there. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure under Wisconsin state law, you can't kind of segregate property tax impacts by different groups like that. So I'm not sure how feasible that one particular would be, based on my understanding of law.
It wouldn't be able to be directly through the property tax bill.
Correct.
It'd have to be something like we work with the senior center case managers and provide assistance through that or some other
Sure.
way, but you're right. Yeah.
But that's where we would, right, provide funding for supportive service when a new affordable housing is built, so way forward, we can increase funding senior centered for case management. So I don't know that we would have any authority over making tax credits.
Mhm.
So, do we have consensus on adding 2, 3, and, well, eliminating 6 as like unfeasible, 2 and 3 to our list of possible recommendations, and then 4 and 5, maybe a list that's for awareness, or just, you know, have it maintained somewhere in notes.
Yeah. And essentially 2 through 6 going off our list,
Yeah.
right? So I think I would agree.
Sorry, never mind.
I didn't, I guess I came in late, so I'm trying to catch up here, but is 2 an item that we don't want to pursue? I'm trying to figure out where the breakpoint
So
is.
the bolded ones are the ones that would be a priority for the Affordable Housing Fund. The blue ones are ones that have been identified as a good policy thing, but kind of separate from the fund piece of it. And the red is outside of the scope.
Yeah,
And they kind of fall out of our purview. Those would need to be city council initiatives, because that would be an ordinance change. So the thought is that we would then, you know, present the plan, maybe have some other
And I
recommendations.
think the committee continue to work on it, again, just separated, it's, you know, so this document's less an action plan for the committee versus just, you know, again, how are we gonna use the money?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So.
Any other thoughts on what we maintain here on item 1?
I like what item 1. I was looking for what was in item D, so I'm happy to see that in there about renters specifically and resources for them.
And that is where we would maybe have purview, right? Like, how,
Yeah.
counseling, diversion, outreach, things that are practices and not a city policy change.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree with 2 and 3 being moved, as you're saying. I think those are certainly priorities that we should be, not we, but the city should be working on through other means to move forward. Could someone maybe provide a little more context about what 4 and 5 are? Like, what would be the funds? What would the funds be used for with the scholarship program and also the youth center? What would the use be? Is that for like childcare?
The parks, well, it is after school care. So for item number 4, the Parks and Recreation Department offers all kinds of programming to the city.
Oh, okay.
For all ages, and it includes athletics, arts and culture, other types of enrichment activities. And their cost for service is generally lower than it is if you were to go to like a private entity. And they have established a scholarship program, so when somebody registers, they can choose to make a donation to it, but they're kind of just getting it off the ground. So that way, if somebody wants to sign like their kid up for soccer, but they can't afford it, they can take advantage of the scholarship. And then the Middleton Youth Center is middle school age after school programming. It's from 3 to 6 p.m.-ish through the school year. They also offer programming in the summer. It happens to be that most of the attendees are on free and reduced lunch programs. They offer homework help, all kinds of phenomenal, wonderful programming. It's housed at the Cromery Middle School, and it's jointly funded by the city and the schools.
And so those are both existing programs?
Yes, but the youth center in particular has had a long waiting list for people trying to get into it, and there's just not enough capacity to accept more.
And
It's,
these are, I think, were originally put on here because the regional housing strategy has other like strategies within that, or goals within that make affordability, and that's directly linked to our value here about affordable living.
yeah.
And
it's
so
good.
then it's like, okay, we've created housing where you can afford to live, but now you can't, but our.
Can't really afford to stay here.
Prohibitive
Yeah.
to be part of Middleton. Yeah.
I guess,
So good priorities, good, recommendations that they need to be worked on further, but not with this fund necessarily. So.
why would it not be this fun necessarily? Because I feel like what you're saying with affordable living is really kind of a key component of it. I think this would be kind of a really important, not really, well, an important piece of that as well. And I think it's more of a question of, do we want to have that as one of our key priorities in terms of, do we have available funding for that? And I think if we remove that, it kind of just pushes the question on to city council to figure out instead. And, I mean, it's always hard to ask for additional funding, but I think it's really closely tied to what we're trying to do here. So
my thought was affordable living, which is a good way to put it, affordable housing, affordable living. Affordable living is a massive entity in of itself. We could come up with a list of 200 items, just like these.
Okay.
And so how do we then pick and choose among the two? What we're really open the door to a lot of different things, that we could be doing. So I think that's where my suggestion would be is, I just have a like to kind of say, potentially laser focus on what we're trying to solve, kind of what's in our wheelhouse, or, span of control here, right? So that's just my thought, but again, open to that. That'd be my question though, if we start to widen the spirit a little bit, where are we gonna, how do we decide which ones are we're gonna take, which ones we're not, right?
I think we're gonna find out pretty quickly that the money isn't gonna go as far as we'd like it to go, right? So we have to be very focused.
Well, and I would argue too, and maybe this is something the group wants to include on the list, but push it to the separate set of policy recommendations, but transportation is the biggest,
Mhm.
aside from housing, that's the largest
Mhm.
expense, people
Mhm.
typically have in their budget.
Mhm.
And there are levers the city could pull, it would take resources that we probably don't have available right now. But, you know, think things like reduced, transit passes or even
Mhm.
free bus
Mhm.
service to encourage people to use it. So these two items are really specific and mostly geared toward children,
Mhm.
but not childcare really
Mhm.
necessarily. So maybe you might want to consider
And
adding something.
what I like with like the senior citizen center and the way forward resources is I think they've kind of figured out which ones, they could probably address affordable living to some degree, but they figure out which ones work well, right? Which ones they want to focus on. So we're kind of funding to them, right, to let them figure out which ones are the,
Mhm.
areas of focus.
Could you be a little more detailed? Like for seniors specifically, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, or like, yeah, and I'm not sure, I'm not as familiar with the senior center's case management, but the way forward's case management, right, in terms of, the direct assistance they provide to families who are in low income, help them from being evicted, right? Which is, I mean, probably is typically often gonna be like, rent support and whatnot, but it could be other things as well that could help them again, save money for rent.
Well, or they can assist getting folks on section 8 wait lists and other, if there are other county funds. It's that increasing the case management because the caseloads are continuously increasing. And then if we have, as we have affordable housing stock, folks are gonna need those additional wraparound service and there would be the thought is that there would be higher demand on our existing supportive services. And I think we would run it, so with regard to 4 and 5, I think we would run into the issue of, is that part of our 25% of the more flexible amount, right? We would not, we have that requirement of the 75% being used directly for affordable housing focus, so, yeah. And we have not yet made decisions on if we are even breaking up the fund,
Mhm.
so. And that would kind of maybe pigeonhole us into having to divvy it out in some way.
Is that even our decision, or is that council? Is council the one that's gonna make the decisions on how that money gets allocated?
But I think we make recommendations
Yeah.
towards that through this strategy.
Yeah.
Like this strategy gets accepted and then we have to develop like what the recommended approach looks like. Is that a fund? Is that a building? Is that, yeah.
And that was the approach that Sun Prairie took, is their initial plan set the buckets that, funding would go towards. And now, right now, they're in the process of actually developing the program specifically and kind of rolling them out one by one as they have staff capacity to go into like the finer details, for example, like a revolving loan fund, what are the interest rates, what are the terms, all that good stuff. I think they waited until after the passage of, designating that as a bucket. Then they went in and took the time to develop the deeper policy and how it actually gets
How
done.
did it get in?
All right.
I think one last comment from me on 4 and 5. I would like those items not to be deleted, but I think I think you said, Abby, moved to the respective departments to, at least make a request for more money for those programs, maybe at the request of us as well.
Or it's like phase 2 for workforce housing of like, how then do we, okay, we
Continued
did
support.
this, but how do we start making more support services available
Okay.
through, maybe not other funding mechanisms, seeking grants, like that could be something for us to explore, not in this year, but
Okay. So would there be a blue list, but also kind of like, which goes to other people, but then we have like, just to throw a color, a green list, which is for us to keep in mind for next year or the year after that, because it is really more of an us thing than somebody else.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, eventually this is gonna result in a recommendation. So I think you could have the recommendation for the Affordable Housing Action Plan, and at the same time, you can have a separate additional policy recommendations document. So we can go ahead and like start, once we get the access to the Google Doc, we can start like kind of cutting and like separating things out
Mhm.
and keep track of both lists.
Or it's all one list of future recommendations and we flush out what the recommendation actually looks like and. Be good on number 2, the providing housing resources and protections for most vulnerable populations. Okay, number 3. I didn't identify anything to be sort of removed from possible strategies here. Nor did Alder Haniro. The only question that she's asking us is it increase funding to or just provide funding to nonprofit entities for acquisition of naturally occurring affordable housing and rehabilitation with energy efficiency? Is there any funding going towards?
Yes, but I think that I don't know if there was any new funding in the 2025 budget. I think we might have spent the rest of the 2024 and early 2025. The program is called the Efficiency Navigator program. So we are finishing up some work, like we added some solar panels to a project in the Lakeview neighborhood. We've been doing modifications for additional insulation and energy efficiency upgrades in existing buildings around town, using a combination of funding sources. Some of it was private donations to Sustain Day, who is one of our partners. Some of it was coming through federal funding, ARPA funding. And then I believe that the city council also allocated some capital budget as well. But that, we've spent the money, so
So I think it would be provide
probably.
funding.
Yeah.
You say acquisition of affordable housing, efficiency navigator doesn't acquire housing, does it?
No,
So that's why I'm curious if like the efficiency navigator, how it relates to both number 1.
the efficiency navigator is just for the second part of that,
Right.
not acquisition, it's rehab.
Right, so I think the first part number 1, I think we kind of covered the first part number 1 is kind of what section 1 is about. There we talk a lot about acquisition in that section.
Acquire land and properties for future development or conversion to affordable housing. Well, it doesn't quite get at NOAA.
What?
Naturally affordable naturally occurring affordable.
I would say we could put the first part of that one as one of the sub bullets in section 1. I guess. That's my thought. Just move it.
Yeah, I think it would be section. Goal 1 or strategy 1 sub 2, maybe it's acquire land or properties to make for future development, conversion to affordable housing. Or maintain naturally occurring affordable housing.
We working on rewording this first one?
Shifting it to, well, but
There's kind of 2
it's
different,
existing housing,
yeah, there's
so.
kind of 2 different actions in this first one. Acquisition of housing and rehabilitation of someone else's housing, kind of 2 different things, right?
So it should be split.
Yeah, that's my
Okay.
thought, because we have a whole section on acquisition in section 1, so to me, it just fits better there.
So could it just be rehabilitation of naturally occurring affordable housing with energy efficiency modifications?
Yep.
Yeah, but we've got to provide the funding for that.
Right,
Right.
right.
And yeah, we can move that section like you guys set up to the first one if it's not already there.
I think it's in number 2.
Right, I think it would fit better in one because one is about a fund to give. Like it says in the original, to give the money to nonprofits to do so. So it would be supplement the funding available for affordable housing and
Oh, and then it would be a
and-
sub of.
yeah,
Yep, okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it covered.
Okay, so we would need to add it as 6.
And the important piece being the nonprofit. It has to be a nonprofit partner to get the funding. Because otherwise, if you sold it to a private developer, they would bring it to market rate.
Right.
Yeah.
Immediately. So.
Has the city used, deed restrictions to deed restrict properties, and could a developer, not necessarily a nonprofit, but a developer, could they do that still? Could they still provide affordable housing in that, with that mechanism?
Think so. I'm not sure how easy it would be for us to audit.
Right, exactly. I get it now.
We do have some where we get annual reporting.
Yes.
But it's possible.
So with the move for the first clause in number 1, in section 3, number 1, would we need to provide funding to nonprofit entity for rehabilitation? Or is it also directly to like homeowners or landlords?
The Efficiency Navigator project has not been specific to nonprofits. In
Okay.
fact, it's mostly small property owners that
Okay.
only have like 1 duplex. So it's like small and local owners primarily.
Do we need to call that out, or should we just say provide funding for rehabilitation with energy efficiency modifications?
I think that's. Seems
Okay.
good.
Okay. I have no change to.
One thing in terms of staff time I'll note for some of the ones under this bucket. So the Efficiency Navigator program, and Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the, going back and forth between contractors and the property owners, that's handled by a nonprofit, and that's a system that seems to generally work pretty well in terms of reducing overall staff time. They're still having to monitor things that are going on and making decisions, but it's not all that back and forth. Having gone to grad school as somebody who did a lot of the going back and forth with contractors and property owners, that would just be that'd be a job unto itself, really, for creating a program that was specific to that. So I'd probably need to get RFP'd out to a nonprofit that specializes in that piece a bit more, if we were going to do that.
And our city sustainability coordinator has been the point person, but you're right, like a lot of the logistics. I mean, she has been on site several times and pretty hands-on, but we still have a nonprofit that's taking lead on organizing.
Funds can be used towards admin costs, correct? So like project positions could be initiated to get.
The
Something
affordable housing
off the
fund,
down.
yes, yeah, if they're strictly tied to housing.
Okay.
yes, Yeah.
So that could be an option too.
Yep.
Because the bucket is a limited amount of funding. So the program, depending on which way we go. Unless it's like something that has in income generation, it would be like one time use. The program would be time, whatever we initiated would be time limited unless it's something like a trust.
And or unless as part of this, the city adopted a policy that we're going to use the affordable housing extension for all TIG closures. But the next one wouldn't be scheduled until 2036, so it's a long way off.
I have no thoughts or changes to 2, 3, and 4. I have item possibly for discussion on 5, but want to check in with everyone else if they've got. Want to discuss 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, I mean, specific should then, I don't know if we're gonna come back on kind of home prioritization later. My only observation, I think, was 2 through 6. Also nice. I don't know if I put them as high priority as some of the other things that we've covered, but I don't, maybe we'll come back to that later.
Yeah, I don't know that we're at the prioritization
That
stage
makes
yet.
sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
I don't know if we've used this throughout the document already, but looking at low income, specifically that language, is there a reason we wouldn't just say specific AMI? Or is that to be more of an all-inclusive?
Well, again, I think maybe does it go to like where the target population is 120% AMI and less. And then as we decide what is the priority, we're able then to create our guidelines and levels that we're not beholden to based on putting them in the strategy. So that's why I wanted to talk about number 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess what were your thoughts on 5 then?
Well, because if we were thinking like, well, maybe 60 is better because, well, that's owner occupied, so 80% would be correct with that. So in which case that might need to be very specific. Because anything above 80% you Abby said is getting towards being able to afford market rate
For rental, yeah.
For
for
rental,
rental,
right, so
but
if
not
this-
for owner occupied.
Right, so if
Yeah.
this is owner occupied, is it more like 100%?
Right, so maybe we want to remove the mention of the AMI level here. And, right, the strategy is that we're establishing a revolving loan. Income guidelines to be determined later.
Yeah, you might just wanna
Yep,
strike that altogether.
yep.
Yeah, would it just be, okay, yeah. Because are there other places already in 2 and 1 where we said like the big 2 and the big 1? Not right. We've recalled out anything. We're deleting 6 and 2, so that one doesn't matter.
No.
Okay. I would agree with that change.
So Ben, I want to get back to your point. Are you saying that? Or you want to wait until we talk about prioritization?
Yeah, I
then?
think we'll
Okay.
talk about prioritization.
Any others that? Any thoughts about 6?
I guess on point 6, I guess, because I'm not trying to understand that one, is that, are we talking about a way of acquiring properties?
Correct.
Okay.
I think. It sounds like a logistical legal nightmare. Quite honestly.
What?
Sounds like a lot, it sounds very staff intensive.
Uh-huh.
And also, it's kind of one of those things where you have to have somebody like constantly looking for those opportunities. And it's hard to do under a governmental structure with open meetings requirements, and our staff doesn't really do things without getting approval. So
Right.
you've got like a potential closed session at council prior to being able to take any action. It's going to be hard for us to act quickly on something like that.
What is an example in the real world? Because this is very technical. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know, this is probably very rare
Yeah.
in Middleton. but I believe an example would be is if, for example, you have a hoarding situation in which there is that government intervention. There's there's a process for attempting to remediate, clean up. When that fails, then things are constituted a nuisance, it's adjudicated in the court. Then the house no longer can be owned by that individual. So that's why the receivership, so the city would then take on that property.
And in those instances, we would have a pretty good lead time because those cases take years of working with building inspection, police, code compliance. So in those kinds of cases, we would have plenty of notification. But
I don't know that it would be the best use of our focus.
I was gonna say, I would question us putting it in this document as a specific item.
I've been here 18 years and I know for sure of one.
Because often they can remediate.
Yeah,
And that is the goal.
yeah, we don't want to take away property from people.
It also, right, like tone tenor. It's the seemingly like sort of a punitive measure, and nothing else in our strategy is punitive.
Yeah, I would remove the item.
Okay.
Yeah. Is that listed in?
I think it's
It's
a
not-
regional housing strategy.
Okay.
Or, no, it's not.
I was gonna say, I don't see the tag at the end.
Sure where that one originated. All right, anything else for number 3? We're making progress. Item 4, provide more pathways to home ownership. Items 3, 5, and 6. In thinking through these, Alder I agree, identified these as must-haves. So let's just cover those real quick first.
Can I actually,
Yep.
since it's before it,
Oh, yep, go
number
ahead.
2. That for like, say, just a family is trying to buy a home, that would be applicable, or what? Who is that applied to? Oh, I guess it's owner.
Don't know the details, but because it's Sheboygan Falls, I assume they had a pretty big housing fund that they were building like full subdivisions with. And I believe they were able to use a land value or donation of the land towards the financing costs of the city then.
Oh, for the city.
Or the Economic Development Corporation, whoever had the loan fund.
Okay.
If I'm remembering correctly, I would guess that's what that bullet is about.
Was that a Habitat for Humanity?
I don't think it was a specific habitat project. I think it was, they have a pretty robust economic development corporation fund that did a couple different subdivisions out there.
Is this the one that Alder Hanaro was talking about where the employers were involved as well?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Sorry for my intrusion before you.
Yeah, should we knock out the ones that there are 2 of us suggesting they stay on the list.
Is that 3, 5, and 6?
Yeah, 3, 5, and 6. I also agree with the change from waive to cover, because it would be taking funds from our housing, from our pot of money, and putting it into cover the cost, so that permitting fee is still being paid to the city, whereas waiving would be just not having, right? The fee would be eliminated, right?
Yeah, Scott and I were kind of brainstorming some ideas about this earlier, and Scott scheduled a meeting with the Parks Director tomorrow. We were wondering if, so the way that park fees work is you get an evaluation done typically by an outside entity, and they look at all of the improvements that are needed and how much additional development the city expects. And then they put together what the city can charge for new housing, and it's kind of the upper limit. So the city could adopt anything lower than that amount, but if we wanted to cover 100% of our park capital needs with the impact fees going forward, we could adopt the highest level. The initial feedback that we heard from the city council when the Baker Tilly study went forward is there seemed to be a lot of trepidation about the amount, and concern that maybe we were outside of what our peer communities were gonna be charging. And so one idea that we had, and we haven't had a chance to talk with Parks Director about this, is maybe there would be an opportunity to waive the affordable developments, but then whatever the amount that the council would be comfortable charging for market rate, maybe that just gets inched up a little, but
Ah.
it's still not to the full 100% that they could charge. I
The
think-
offsets.
Yeah, it helps to like still capture the same amount. We're still below the max. But it also helps with a concern that we have, which is, does it look odd if the city is taking money from the Affordable Housing Fund and putting it into our park fund?
Yeah.
Is that kind of going against a little bit what the intent of the extension was? Would that create red flags for like the way that Middleton's using our funding? And I don't know.
So a waiver is not the right way to go about it. Or
Well,
not
I think
covering is
covering-
the issue, yeah, so.
I had a little bit of concerns with covering. I think you also were concerned with that possibly being.
Yeah, I think the messaging there would get tricky.
Yep.
And wouldn't want to raise red flags. That being said, still recognizing that we do need the, overall park impact fees to keep the parks department rolling along. So I think as part of the overall looking at the park fees, like, we can just try and find a better balance, maybe reduce what they are and find some spots for maybe waiver would make sense within the larger how we charge those park fees.
And just as a little bit of background, we do have past practice that we could rely on. The city passed an ordinance to waive impact fees for several categories of affordable housing previously. It did not at the time apply to park fees, which are the largest chunk of new construction. It was only for fire, EMS, and police impact fees. We've since phased all three of those out, but there is an approved ordinance, I think it was from 2008. And it has 6 different criteria. One is Habitat for Humanity. One is anything that uses a federal low-income housing tax credit. They were exempted. All those affordable income restricted units didn't pay the impact fees. So we could potentially use this exact same language that was previously approved, but then apply it to park fees and still find a way to make the park fund whole through the market rate.
So it seems, I'm hearing that this should be revised to bringing back those criteria and creating that shift in like the fee scales. Is that, is that a way to say that?
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
So would we just leave the language of waive in here and then that stuff would be kind of not in here, or would that all need to be included?
I think it would need to be, this statement would need to be recrafted to get at what I'm hearing the recommendation from staff would be for us to consider, and we would also want to remove the 60%. And Jeremy, I am very sorry, if you've been wanting to pipe up, I may have missed it, so, okay, thank you. So earning 60% or less, I think, right, we would want
Yeah,
to
to be
revisit
consistent.
again and be consistent, so.
And this also does mention permitting fees, which is not something we do now.
Okay.
Also, this is limited to home ownership, whereas the current ordinance applies to affordable rental as well.
Okay. So do you all wanna maybe recraft that one for us?
I also think if it's waiver instead of covering, that kind of moves it out of the bucket of the fund.
That's true.
Because that would just be
Yep.
more of a separate.
Becomes more of a
policy
recommendation.
thing.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's definitely top of mind for us as we're kind of working on the overall impact fee discussion, so that can.
Blue
live pretty
bucket.
well in that.
Yeah,
Look at
Okay.
probably then, actually.
yeah. And I assume that you're looking at that for both home ownership and
Yeah.
rental.
Yeah.
Okay, well then if we're, that might be one that we're moving into our, to others, but that could be done probably more quickly than some of our other strategies.
Mhm.
Yep.
In fact, it needs to be done more quickly because we're rewriting the subdivision ordinance, as Randy knows, and we need a number to plug into that.
Okay.
ordinance.
So let's pull out and then work on immediately.
Mhm.
You guys are already figuring this out. Okay. Looking at 5 and 6. I don't have anything to change.
Yeah, that was good.
I guess my only thought, and this is probably just a general question for the group, is to what extent in this plan do you want to name specific nonprofits or?
Or very good point.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, yeah, can we use,
Say partner with nonprofit organizations.
yeah.
Or
right,
area
even as an
nonprofits.
EG, I mean, we want to always use them, I mean, yeah, we could at least put an EG around them anytime we use them, but otherwise, or we could just strike them, right, too.
Yeah, is it helpful to include them? Alongside like what you said, saying nonprofits and then AG, then,
And it provides an example of what the intent is, right?
Yeah.
Like that it's a housing specific nonprofit.
yeah. I like that
Yeah.
as like kind of the
Yep.
standard.
Do you wanna, should we do that just throughout the document as our
Yeah,
standardization of that?
yeah,
So Abby, but what we were just talking about is removing or moving reference to specific nonprofit names into an EG paren. And just stating, you know, partner with area nonprofits,
Mhm.
EG. So that where it's not, there's not any, I think part of that would help resolve any sort of thought about preferential treatment,
Mhm.
and doesn't limit us.
So we are still going to name them, but only in one place in the document, or we're not naming them at all?
Or whenever there's a nonprofit, it could be,
Yeah, 'cause
for
we've
example.
got like a number 5, we got other places where we mentioned Way Forward, we mentioned other groups in different places, right, so it's probably just. At least, you know, always using an EG if we're gonna name someone.
Okay.
But I think that it provides an example of what the intent of the
Right.
nonprofit is.
Mhm.
So it's, okay, Habitat is building, moving out is helping folks maintain or get into housing. Way Forward provides like the other resources. So I think it's important to note them as examples, so.
Great.
Let's look at number 4, as that was identified as possibly not part of the core mission. So it really is about the education, some education pieces,
Abby, could you scroll up?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
increasing funding, education and support for coaching, credit score coaching, homebuyer education, financial literacy. I think some of that gets at is
Yeah, isn't that covered in?
with the resources, I think number 2,
Yeah.
right, like. That's all gonna be included in expanding case management, providing more services to that.
Yeah, because that's really resources.
Yeah.
And like it is a pathway, but it's resources.
Mhm.
So I would agree, I guess, making sure that this is covered in big 2.
Two, if this belongs more with the other.
Yeah, the other group.
Mhm.
I did just want to mention one thing. I don't know if it's necessary, but we do mention moving out here, and I just wanted to disclose that one of the staff members within our department is on their board of directors. And we'll make sure as this moves forward that we just mention it. I don't know if it's absolutely necessary.
Transparency. Okay, so we are And we have consensus to remove 4 from this list.
Is that a blue pen or no?
It's a green. Would
Green?
you guys try to go off your numbers. I mean, it's red right now.
Yeah.
You changed red to green, right? But yeah, it's more, I think it's more of a green, like other good ideas, other good things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Don't lose it, let's
yeah.
keep it.
We have a green section, now we have green text. Is this good?
All right, now let's go back to items 1 to 7, 8, and 9. We're starting with 1. I like down payment assistance as a strategy, as you know.
Is it, so we're just trying to bring one up to a more a more critical level, is that what we're saying?
Or is it
Keeping
an
it.
action that we want to maintain on as part of a strategy for providing more pathways?
Yeah.
I think so.
Keep it as an option for us, yeah.
So there's this reason we call it first generation as opposed to just, I mean, again, we said what our target population is before, but now we're coming up with a different target population or different aspects of target population.
So you're saying just strike the first generation?
Yeah, just say targets or target populations.
Because it's pigeonholing us,
Yeah.
because maybe we do want that, but
Or target populations, that's a very.
We have not really
we didn't really mention
We haven't-
first time.
defined target populations, but again,
Well,
that
we
comes
said-
with,
We said in paper said AMI, and that's what we said with Trish.
right?
Usually those people won't have owned a home already, I would assume. Maybe not,
Well,
maybe.
I think this is specific to, so first gen, meaning like no one prior in their
Oh, and
family
their family.
lineage would
Okay.
have been a homeowner, because that's the quickest way to acquire generational
Yeah.
wealth and equity, and yeah, so that's why it's that would be called out, but you know, if we want to pin it and
That I'm sure people have figured out a way to do it, but that strikes me as hard to,
determine eligibility.
yeah.
And as with our down payment assistance loan program that we previously had, I would assume that this would involve a partner who's reviewing all of the terms and application. So it wouldn't be the city reviewing the eligibility, right? Okay.
Yeah, those admin fees.
Yeah.
So maybe it's just down payment assistance for target population.
I guess I didn't even read the second half of the sentence that it says first generation homebuyers and other target populations. I don't know if that's written for emphasis to point out this is a priority group. So I think being broad is better, but I realized that the language wasn't necessarily limiting it to first gen.
Well, since it's not limiting it, do we just maybe call it out as a priority then? But again, I don't know how you determine, and
Yeah.
I think about all the folks like who are maybe now home buyers, whose parents had housing foreclosed upon during the Great Recession and have not been able to purchase since, like, they're still, like, is that, you know,
So I guess, challenging a little bit, why do we say a first time home buyer is higher priority than someone else with the same AMI?
Yeah.
I'd go for strike.
okay. Number 2. From the previous conversation, we want to maintain that as something to explore, right?
Yeah, but I almost wonder, is that is that really like a pathway to homeownership, or does that fit better under a different? Because that's more like development, if I understood what we're talking about before.
Well, I think it's a lot like number one. In a way, it's a down payment assistance program, right?
Mm,
We're saying,
Oh, okay.
and let's allow them to use the land value itself as the down payment.
So maybe it needs to be just merged with one in that it's, yeah, that it would be
Down payment assistance programs.
including considering use of land value for down payment. Yep. Checking in with Jeremy, we're good? Okay. Don't want you to feel forgotten. All right, so then 7. If I facilitate the sale or lease of publicly owned land to nonprofit.
So question about that one, other places we're talking about acquiring properties, here we're talking about selling. If I'm reading that right.
Well, is it even city property? It's just identifying properties that might be available for nonprofit private developers?
Publicly owned land.
Oh, Pelco, yeah, okay.
That could include other government entities too. I mean, I don't really know how much there's like any federal or state land within Middleton. Maybe you guys know if there's any, but
I think we just have the post office.
it's the post office. Okay.
And right of way. That's it. I think, I love the idea behind this, but one of my earliest projects with the city was going through every parcel of land that the city of Middleton owned and looking at any opportunities for selling. And it was almost all deed restricted for park, used for public right of way, or used for stormwater management. So there were really very few opportunities. We did have one. We sold the building that now has Cool Hand Customs on Lee and Clark.
Okay,
That was the only thing we found. And we did a very exhaustive. Now, that doesn't mean that through new policies, the city adopts like, well, we want to narrow street right of way. We want to reduce parking, things like that. There might be policies that the city wants to move forward that could result in land becoming available that was not previously really thought of as. But I don't foresee this being a huge opportunity in Middleton. I think there are a lot of cities that this could be a great opportunity, but.
and they're, whether it's a viable piece, because I'm also thinking about the fence line behind Harbor, right, there's not gonna. Cause did that go through?
You mean selling the land to Harbor?
Uh-huh,
It's not finalized, no,
okay.
no.
So-
But yeah, there's like a landlocked parcel that they use for parking
Right.
that's city owned.
But it's not, that would not be viable by itself as a location for development. So,
Right,
Yep.
yeah, it's not on a.
So I think
public
this falls under the very rare categories. Maybe that's not something
Right.
we were
Yeah.
pursuing. Okay. Identify number 8, potential land that could be developed and included in a community land trust.
So what would that look like? Too far with those.
And and again, would that be publicly owned land, or is that what land that would be purchased and then put into the land trust?
This sounds like it might fit in another section as well, right? Like acquiring land or housing as opposed to helping people reach home ownership.
Mhm.
Could someone give me like a quick 2 sentences on what a community land trust is?
Nonprofit that, at least the Madison area one, their model is they own the land, you own the house, and just through the financing structure, they keep the house affordable, so you get a little bit of the upside from the house part of it, but not from the land piece of it.
So is it
When
like
you go
a,
to sell, it has to go back to the program, like you.
they get the
Because the land is still always is owned by, I think in Madison, it's owned by the city, I thought.
It's a separate, I think it's a separate nonprofit the city
City.
helps to fund.
Got it.
But the Madison Area Land Trust is also available to us
Okay.
in Middleton. So if we wanted to work with them directly, I think their service area is all of Dane County.
Would it be a bad analogy to say that it's like a public HOA?
It's not quite,
Not say exactly, but it's not fully off base.
A
well,
little bit,
it just means that because you don't, there's no land rights, you
yeah,
can't sell a house on the open market.
yeah,
So it goes back to the nonprofit to sell the house.
okay.
And basically there is no down payment, I thought, and
Oh.
it's pretty, I don't know that you make money when you sell the house.
You make a little bit, but I think there's a formula for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a-
Yeah.
Yeah, the simpler way is basically it's within the nonprofit and there's a formula of how much profit you can get when you do go to sell it.
Yeah.
So that it keeps it affordable more permanently.
Okay.
But it still encourages people to buy into it as a way of building some wealth.
Yes.
Mhm.
And then be able to, like, think of it as like a starter home mechanism, so that the goal is that they can eventually move on to housing stock that. The ones I've seen in Madison have been pretty small square footage.
Mhm.
Oh,
Do we talk about anywhere else in the document about partnering with Madison Area Land Trust or other community land trusts?
I think they're called out specifically.
and
There's a spot in the first section.
There you go. Okay. Yeah.
which one
So
is that?
that's increase the number of housing units. Acquire land or properties to make future development conversion to affordable housing, establish community land trust or land bank. And I would recommend.
Instead of a,
Like it would just part.
yeah, rather than to start establishing.
Or partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think then that kind of takes care of that.
Yep. Even though it is technically a pathway to homeownership, I think we can remove it from there. Okay.
Yeah, because this does say land or property, so it could be an existing home or it could be an undeveloped site.
Mm-hmm. So then going into section 4, number 9, this is directly related to the land trust. It's about creating financial incentives for developers to do that.
Like, again, I'm sure the Madison Land Trust has those incentives, right?
We reached out to them about partnering on a project and they needed the land and 150,000 per unit to construct. So they have other funding mechanisms and I'm sure they layer and it's probably varies on the project and the site and I'm sure the costs have changed, so.
Right.
Take that for what it's worth, but I think that they probably would need some level of incentive.
I think there's better ways for us to focus incentive making with developers than specifically with the land trust project.
The flip side is, I mean, with the land trust, it's kind of a permanent portability, whereas a lot of the other programs are maybe a 30-year, 15 or 30-year portability window. So I guess if you want to keep some language in there, we could, I don't know what, go back in with what we were just looking.
Oh, yeah.
For.
It could be like just a
Some
clause
additional,
onto E,
yeah,
yeah.
right.
and explore financial incentives for
Right.
developers, yeah. Okay. Getting rid of redundancies, good. How are you feeling? We can move on from 4, great. Oh, hopefully we can get through. Okay, number 5, increase the overall number of housing units. I did not spend enough time with Lisa about why this would all be assigned.
Yeah, but that was
Yeah.
my recommendation, Lisa, too.
Oh,
That
okay.
I just thought these were all like actions, something you could do. They're not, I didn't see them as uses of the fund.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, because I mean,
And-
it's related to ordinance and.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and
All good things, but not necessarily things that would be funded with.
right,
Mhm.
I do think overall, though, it is a priority that we increase the overall number of housing units. But I guess I don't know how. If everything is being moved out of this, what would go under
but that's a
it?
goal in the city's master plan, right?
Yes,
Yep.
that's like the number one
Yep.
goal within the housing.
And I
section.
think, our number 1 gets at that, but we are specific to our
Targeted.
population, which aligns with the values of and the priorities. So it seems like we would just remove number 5 altogether.
I think that would. That makes sense.
Okay. One less strategy for us to have to prioritize. We're gonna have to figure priority out, so. Number 6, supporting implementation of the Affordable Housing Action Plan. Again, it looks like 2 through 7 will be achieved through other mechanisms, not necessarily through the fund, through us. However, the fund could go to hiring, I think we've talked about that. Staff to implement.
Yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
7, I guess there might be one exception where 7 could be a use of the fund perhaps. Yeah, what we're talking about by support.
But can we use funds for advocacy efforts? Yeah,
Well. Our, it's a 75%, right, minimum or something like that, I can't remember what the percentage is, but there is money that. Wouldn't have to be specifically for
affordable housing,
affordable housing.
but whether it could be used for, right, supporting a coalition for advocacy
Right,
is.
the 75%,
Yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
Like, that's in effect lobbying and
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
yeah,
Right.
I got it.
yeah, I think these are all things that should be on. Probably already on staff lists, right?
Right,
With the reporting and the,
yeah, and if we achieve number 1, it comes up to that person as to
Mhm.
what they cover, what they don't, right?
Mhm. And that, right, those can be, some of these could be duties of that staff person. All right, but do we have consensus that we should maintain gold, like an action to have?
Yeah.
Somebody use, yeah.
Yeah.
Cause this will be a big lift. All right, so we'll maintain 6 with only 1 action underneath it.
Is there a way we can integrate it into one of the other?
Good.
Or do we wanna? Or is it a priority?
But it is an action, so we want to keep it in the parallel with the other.
I think it's okay to have 1. Yeah. Okay. Moving, we're good to move to 7? Okay, last one, other recommendations. Maybe this is where we just have our list of. That there aren't necessarily part of our strategy, but it is that sort of appendix of recommendations. Because again, these are like policy.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I guess we turn number 7 into our appendix list of our
Yeah.
green items.
There's a list of recommendations, policy items. And is it also a list of things that we will want to remember for future years for ourselves?
I think maybe it's 2 subcategories under the other recommendations, so recommendation is future work for workforce housing.
Just to circle back quick to the supporting implementation of the Affordable Housing Action Plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's more a question for Abby. Is there any other actions that need to be taken for the CDA to become the
Oh,
entity that administers the fund, or I guess, this might be a good spot to establish,
Yeah,
formalizing the changes that we're kind of moving towards right now.
right, yeah, and there is action that's required. The city council by statute created the CDA, but did not give it oversight of housing. And that's one thing I want to be really careful about and work with our city attorney on to make sure that we don't somehow remove ourselves from the Dane County Housing Authority, because I'm not sure how we separate out the authority that we're giving the CDA while still maintaining under the umbrella of the Dane County Housing Authority that administers like Section 8 and all those kinds of incentives, keeps the list of units available, those kinds of things that they handle on behalf of the city.
Okay,
So, yeah.
so we had identified that as a goal even before we started doing that strategy. It was our
Mhm.
first joint meeting. So I think we need the language in there about, because we had a list of steps that needed to be taken to execute this overall project, and
Mhm.
that was the combination of workforce housing and CDA in some
Right.
capacity.
Yep.
But it would have to be the number of members and the structure of CDA because that's statutorily mandated.
Mhm.
And so we know we needed to do that by next April.
Yep.
As well.
Yep.
Because so I think finish establishing the city entity that maintains, CDA statutory requirements and has the authority over Middleton's housing strategy. Or
Yes.
something to
Yeah.
that effect.
Yep, I think that's the basics.
Yep.
I just want to work with the attorney and make sure we get it.
So-
get everything.
Abby you can work on
Yes.
language for our
Yep.
implementation item number 2. Was a good reminder to
Yep.
not lose sight of that, because we have to have that in order to implement whatever strategy and actions we pick.
And on that kind of train of thought, this might also be a good spot. It's not directly a funding thing, but kind of lay out the process for, creation of these programs. And that could happen in a number of different ways. And that's something that probably deserves its own conversation, but as I think Becky mentioned during her presentation, their approach was they got the general buckets approved and then they individually followed up with specific programs to get approved by council.
Okay.
That academically seems like a good approach, but there's also probably 20 other approaches that would also make sense. And so I think outlining that up front would probably be a good thing for us to decide so that there's a predictable process so nobody feels like they're missing the train as this gets approved.
And Becky kind of stressed that she tried to keep the council in the driver's seat, quite right?
Yeah.
That they were always part of the discussions and.
So you want to develop language for that one too, to get at what you're.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that would be item number 3.
Yeah.
The implementation. Okay. I feel better about having implementation maintained.
Right.
Doesn't sound good.
It's legit now, we got 3 items on it.
Yeah. And they're all must do's, so. So 6:30, we had allocated 2 hours for this. We did just get through what we're maintaining on our strategy list right now. I know we had talked about starting to prioritize things here. Wondering if we want,
I'd advocate coming back with a cleanup.
Yeah.
yes, that's
Yeah.
what I
Would
was
make it a
thinking
lot
too.
easier.
Also, did the education group start a plan as well? Is there a need to like meet together, combining things? I mean,
Yeah,
what
that's a good
about,
question. They met last week.
okay,
And there was a request in the workforce housing committee last week to share tonight's outcome with them.
Yeah.
Of course, you want.
So I'll clean up this document and get that sent around. And the current version of the education committee's work project. My understanding, and I haven't had time to look too closely at it, is that there's still some work to be done there. So it's pretty rough in terms of the rough draft, but sounds like they're all still making progress, and so we'll share where everybody's at
okay.
with those documents. Hopefully I should hopefully be able to clean all that up by the end of the week. So we'll see.
Good.
And so then our next step would be to convene in October. And I mean, are we the group to prioritize these, possible actions within each strategy? Or is it a place where we're ready to go back to the 2 committees
Good question.
and get all input?
While you think about that, for October, we're talking about having a joint CDA workforce housing meeting. And that would either happen likely on October 9th, typical CDA night, or on October 20th, which is the typical workforce housing night. Our next housing strategy and finance subcommittee meeting is on the 14th. So kind of right in the middle of those 2.
We're talking about taking the cleaned up version, but not necessarily prioritized to that joint meeting versus we still want to look it over and prioritize within each item.
Well, if we met on our regularly scheduled meeting time on the 14th. And we combined meetings on the 20th, you said?
It's either gonna be the 9th or the 20th. So far, the preference is on the 9th for the joint. But a couple topics we have for that, we were gonna invite someone from the city of Madison to talk about their revolving loan fund. We were gonna invite Mayor Kuhn to talk about housing in general, a housing survey that she conducted, and
Developer meetings.
the developer meetings that she's been hosting. And then what were the other topics we were talking about having on that joint?
Those are the 2 main ones, I believe, at the meeting last night. Also talked about there's a regional housing strategy senior webinar that we could recap as a group.
It sounds like a full agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could probably go ahead and plan on working on prioritization on the 14th.
Okay. So that we have some thoughts to take when we meet jointly again,
So then targeting November for a joint meeting.
another joint meeting.
Okay.
And the education folks might just need to catch up. I'll flag now, it's not need to be all about me, but I would really struggle to attend on the 9th.
Okay.
I don't, so I'm traveling and I think I don't want to commit to having video cell service.
Okay.
the trip from DC to the Shenandoah Valley.
So,
I'll be there in November, actually.
Oh, okay.
so maybe that's a reason why we look at the October 20th.
Yes, that works beautifully for me.
I think we had heard back from Mayor Kuhn and she said she'd be available for either. She preferred the night.
Mm.
We haven't heard back from Madison.
Haven't heard back from Madison folks, but hopefully we can get them for one of those nights or even just maybe separate presentation by itself, because yeah, I think the revolving loan fund piece might be good information to hear from them before making some final decisions.
Okay.
All right, so we'll,
I know Alan posted the overall timeline in the chat, from where we at, how are we doing the timeline? So there's a
Mhm.
target, that date month is like October was having our draft, right?
Let me double check what.
tweet. Done.
We was, I think it was, once we clean it up and
Yeah.
prioritize, we're probably. I don't know if that's combined, if that's combined draft with the education or.
Or should we invite them to our October 14th?
Well, we did say, I mean. We can. There's no harm in having people. Having them join us, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all of our city agendas have a notice that there may be a quorum of other committees present, as long as it's publicly noticed and open.
This is a little unrelated, but the city of Sun Prairie presented at a previous meeting, right?
Yep.
Is there a share out of that somewhere? Because I think that's a meeting I missed.
There's a YouTube of it.
Oh yeah, there's a YouTube video I can.
Is that the last meeting?
Yes.
It was on the workforce housing, not at this group.
Oh, it was workforce housing.
Yeah, workforce house.
What was the day?
That happened on,
Wasn't it Monday?
actually it would
No.
be
No.
2 meetings ago technically, because we just had the one last night. Sorry, I was getting the other thing pulled up first.
Sorry.
Was the August
We
meeting?
said preliminary draft in October and refined draft in November. So we're right on schedule.
Hey.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, Becky joined us back in August. And I can shoot that link out to the joint
Okay.
group. Awesome.
All right, anything else for the good of the order? Got next steps? Let's get 20 minutes back.
Win-win.
I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Good note on Dave.